started. There's a number of people that wish to speak. I'm Lenny Elias, and I'm the chair of the Board of Commissioners this year. With me, Charlie Atkins, Christian Neal, Joanne Sikorsky, and Julie Brooks. It's been a long day, so excuse me for losing my voice at times. A couple things that ground rules for you to deal with tonight. We are recording both video and audio. This is going to be part of our official commissioner meeting minutes, so this is actually going to go into our record. We are not going to transcribe all your remarks. If you've submitted written testimony, we will copy that into our record, but the actual recording of this public meeting will be done by CD and kept that way. What our intent is after this meeting is to share this recording with our legislators, with other commissioners, and with other groups. One of the things we have remarked for a number of times about not getting response from ODNR. We actually got 2 letters in the past 24 hours from ODNR. One from the director, which was a personal letter from me to him that spurred it. He did not respond to our official letter, but I told a number of you before I knew the director when he was a county commissioner in Mercer County. So I'm going to read you his response as the director of ODNR. We also got a response from ODNR directly from our official letter about the Ginsburg well. So I'm going to read excerpts of that as well. Anyone that wants a copy of that, please let us know afterwards. Those of you that are going to speak tonight, we ask you to keep your remarks to 2 minutes or less because we have a time constraint that's imposed by the building. You have to be out of here at 9 o'clock. We will stay till 9 o'clock and give everybody a chance to speak, but our time constraint is run by the building, so we have to make sure we give everybody a chance to speak that wishes to speak. If you don't get a chance to speak tonight and you want to say something else, please send it to us and we will include it. One of the things that's important is that we continue to act and continue to work, because if we don't keep working, nothing will change. With that, I just want to read a couple things, and then what we're going to do is call your name from the list that we have from these sheets that people said they wish to speak. If you wish to speak, please come forward so you can use the mic. So you're here with our recording equipment so we can make it part of our record, and you can face the crowd rather than face us. So we're here to listen to you, so talk to your fellow citizens. But what I want to say right now is ODNR wrote us about the Ginsburg well, and a couple of things that were highlights of the letter that I thought we should share is that new underground injection control rules went into effect in October 1, 2012, making Ohio's underground injection control program one of the most stringent in the United States. This is ODNR speaking, this is not me. I'm not passing judgment pro or con on ODNR's words, I'm giving you their words. These comprehensive regulations allow the division chief to attach special permit conditions to each Class 2 injection well permit that can also provide additional protections of public health and safety. These rule changes also expanded the comment period from 3 to 15 days once an application is received, expanding the reporting requirements, and define the consequences of the violations. The Ginsburg well was authorized by the division to begin injection in the upper Anaconda limestone in 1984. Since the division began electronic reporting of inspections in 2000, the Ginsburg wells have been inspected 118 times. For comparison, the U.S. EPA would have only required 14 inspections in that same time period. During the 30-year lifespan of the well, violations and chief's order have been issued to the various operators of record. However, the severity and frequency of the violations have never have been and are not now considered excessive or abnormal. The majority of the violations have dealt with the condition of equipment, mechanical integrity of the isolation packer located on the base of the injection well tubing, or the well not actively in use. None of these instances would lead to contamination in underground drinking water sources and a common misconception being that when the isolation packer loses integrity, fluid escapes the well into the environment. This is not and never has been the case. Mechanical integrity is lost, the well is ordered and shut down, and diagnostic testing is done to determine the cause of failure. Repairs are completed, and the well must all pass all mechanical integrity requirements prior to being placed back in operation. There have been no groundwater complaints reported in regards to this well. When cited by ODNR inspectors for violations regarding surface pollution or contamination, the operator has collected all issues. The corrective action include removal and proper disposal of all impacted soil, followed by seeding and mulch. There are a number of other paragraphs involved in the letter, but I wanted to give you the gist of the comments they made about the Ginsburg well. Those of us that have seen some of the issues of the Ginsburg well, I think would take issue with those comments and have more things to say about them. Now, this is from Jim Zeringer, and I'm not going to read you what I wrote to Jim, but needless to say, it did spawn a response for the first time. Thank you, dear Commissioner, thank you for the invitation, but unfortunately I'm not able to attend this meeting. The protection of Ohio citizens and our environment is my duty as ODNR Director, and I take it seriously. When appointed, I brought an overriding approach to the job. Decisions made by me or any of ODNR's dedicated employees will be based on law and science, not emotion or politics. This process allows us to protect human health, safety, and environment while regulating the responsible development of our abundant natural resources for the benefit of every Ohioan. He goes on to talk about ODNR's transparent process. Our staff conducted a public meeting last year in Athens to answer concerns about a previously filed injection well permit application. We made more than a dozen of our experts available to answer any and all questions from the public. In regards to the current application, my staff has reviewed every objection and question and responded to each. Those responses are available online. So I don't know if anybody's been on the ODNR website in the last 24 to 48 hours, but I know I'm going to check it tomorrow when I get some time. Check and see if they're really there. The next important paragraph that I want to read from his letter is, no hearing will be held regarding the K&H Partners permit application because no new scientific information or evidence has been identified that would indicate this proposed well is a threat to public health or safety. In addition, no questions or concerns were raised that haven't already been addressed through Ohio law or cannot be addressed through special permit conditions. I fired off a brief response back to Jim Zeringer before I left today and said, Jim, what are the special permit conditions you intend to apply to this well application? We'll see if I get a response to that question. Because he's standing behind Ohio law saying they can have special permit applications. Let's see if he doesn't. So that was the actual response we got from Jim. Again, if you want to see copies of it, we'll make copies of it for you or we can forward it to you. Again, I don't want to take a lot of time reading all that because we have a number of people that want to speak. We have a number of people that have given us written comments already. And what we'll do is we'll read them into the record later on if we are done with everyone speaking. But I want to make sure everyone that's here tonight has an opportunity to speak before we do that. So first on the list, we have Luca Westendahl. You want to speak? Please come up and use the mic so we can record it clearly and everyone can hear you.
Actually, I have to apologize to everyone present. I was initially approached, told that this was to sign up, and I signed not aware that I would be requested to speak. I didn't prepare anything, and I'm just going to listen. I apologize for taking up the time.
If you don't wish to speak, just say you don't wish to speak when we call your name. That's not a problem. Next, we have E. Berlowski Kodesh. Come on up.
Read everything here, but I'll kind of shorten it. My name is Elizabeth Berlowski-Cordish, and I'm a professor of geological sciences at Ohio University. And in my 20 past years here in Athens County, I have worked with the rocks in this region. I have extensive experience in viewing scientific research as a journal associate editor, peer reviewer, geologic researcher, reading hundreds of scientific papers. And I won't go on because I don't have time. But I think I'm qualified here to say something. Maybe. And frankly, I am appalled at the total lack of science in the determination of this application to be acceptable. It's like being in a third world country where the needs and health of the local citizens are blatantly ignored. I have 3 reasons here, and they're really long, but I'll go to the main one, which I think scientific reasons for which this permit should be denied. There is this video, you should go to the website of ODNR's Division of Oil and Gas Resources Management, that shows that what is basically involved in the injection of fracking waste fluids of unknown chemistry deep into the earth. The permitting process involves all the engineering protocols on the surface, but there is no information or research into what is below the surface. It seems the wells are drilled in the void, deep into the earth, this void, whatever it is, without much concern if the conditions are ideal for injecting wastes. It is clear, perhaps, they have never yet required all these new regulations for seismic surveys. So if it's required, well, I think it is in this case, because the earthquakes up in Youngstown, due to the same process, show that this whole permitting process is not scientific and greatly flawed. The website does state that new regulations prohibit wells to be placed near faults, which they discovered, by the way, in seismic surveys up in Youngstown after the earthquakes. Something just got published about it this summer. Faults are present in southeastern Ohio and can only be found through seismic surveys. Why did the division not require a seismic survey? To be sure that there are no faults near the first injection well, let alone the second. Good science would require this. How can ODNR ignore this needed scientific research to make sure that the injection wells here in Athens County are not near any faults? Because that's where the trouble starts. And that's what could indicate an earthquake later. And basically with the seismic survey, you would know the positions of the aquifers, you would know where the faults are, you would know where everything's going. Do we know exactly the layer that this is being injected into? What's its permeability? What's the porosity? What's the capacity? And you're putting a well so close to another one, you're doubling the input. Is that going to harm anything? If you have faults, the high pressure, as it did in Youngstown, can promote earthquakes. I can't. How many minutes do I have left? 10. Okay. So basically, I think the division should accept these public comments, basically because we need to protect the citizens of Ohio. And with the lack of science in the permitting process by the state of Ohio, I think it's really important that some independent geologic committee, not their experts, look over it. Because this is how real science is done. Independent people look at the research and tell you if you've made a mistake. And I would recommend that to make this a very fair scientific process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allison Stein. And Chris, raise your hand so everybody stand up and wave at everybody. Chris is going to be the timekeeper, so he's going to give you the high sign when your 2 minutes is done, so you know your time's up, so we don't have to interrupt you, and then you can wrap up shortly after you do that signal if you're not done.
My name is Dr. Allison Stein. I'm a teacher, writer, and mother. I've lived in Athens County since 2008. My son was born here. 3 years ago, when I was pregnant, doctors discovered a tumor in my uterus. This tumor made childbirth very difficult and dangerous for my son and me. It also decreased my chance of ever conceiving another child to less than 30%. 6 months ago, my son began coughing. Despite repeated trips to the doctor, he coughs himself to sleep every night. He is 2 years old. We live 4.5 miles from the Ginsburg Well. When I asked why the Ginsburg Well, a frequently sanctioned waste site, which has repeatedly failed inspections for such documented issues as mechanical failure, failures to plug, and contamination, is still accepting waste, I am told we don't really know. When I ask what is in the trucks that arrive day and night to the well, I am told we don't really know. When I ask what caused my tumor, when I ask why my son is coughing, when I ask why I have a headache every single day, I am told we don't really know. Here's what I know. I came to Athens County for an advanced degree. I stayed because when I found I was going to be a mother, I could think of no better place, and I've lived in quite a few, to be a mother. I stay because here I can feed my son healthy food, let him play outside on unpolluted land. I stay because here we can truly live. And we stay now, my son and I, even in the face of mounting concerns about the safety of Athens County, because if any community can rise up and address these concerns, it is this one. If any community can stand up to an industry, it is this one. If any community can protect my child, it is this one. But we need help. Others will address their remarks tonight to the commissioners and the local community. I am appealing to those of you reading my words or watching on the web. Mothers, students, teachers, reporters, we need you. We need your outrage. We need your attention. We need your voices and your questions and your witness and your refusal. We need you to know what is going on down here. K&H wants to build another well like the Ginsburg. They want to ship millions of gallons of waste from other states to be dumped in the small towns of Ohio. Without disclosure, without stopping, my family may be poisoned to line the pockets of none of us listening or watching tonight. Ohio has heated your homes, built your cities, supplied your workforce, and fed your families for years. And we are asking you, I am asking you, my son asks you, for one thing in return. Let us live.
Next, Ron Chester. And any of you that have written comments, please send them to us so that we also have a copy of them.
Yes, my name is Ron Kester, and I used to live in Greene County, Pennsylvania, the western end of Greene County, which borders the northern panhandle of West Virginia. And right now, the fracking and Marcellus shale, coal mining as well, has ruined our homeland. Just real quick, I'm going to run off some elephants in the room that is not discussed by regulation agencies, by courts of law, by judges, media. And these elephants are, number one, there has never been a homeless person in our community. Today, there are homeless shelters. Why? Because rent's not $200–300 a month anymore, it's $1,200 per worker. So that means a lot of poor families without places to live. Number two, our community has been lived generation after generation, have stayed in our community by virtue of purchasing local farms and local places to rent. What happens now is you go to a farm that's up for auction for maybe worth $25,000. The bid starts $125,000. The corporation raises their hand, auction over. Young couples with babies in their arms just are devastated. This is how they are to stay home. No longer is that the case. Our dirt road is grass down the middle. 2 cars a day is now 100 cars, vehicles, tankers, 25-foot industrial gravel road. And I could go on and on. But the bottom line is, what no one is looking at in terms of all of this is our grandchildren. We have our major responsibility on this planet is for our grandchildren to live in a world at least as safe as one we live in. And from what I can see, my spring is gone. I built a 3,000-gallon tank to hold my spring water for my granddaughter who loves our 1830s log cabin that I restored. It is now depleted. Our well has
started. There's a sign-up sheet somewhere out there that wish to speak. If not, make sure you come up here and give us your names, and we'll call you, give you a chance to speak as well. Before we go on, I also want to recognize Jeannie Wilson from Sherrod Brown's offices who joined us tonight. So we got some experience to talk about here as well. I don't know if there's representatives from any other offices. If they are, please let us know, because I haven't seen anybody, but that doesn't mean they aren't here. Okay, next is Ellen Isley.
My name is Ellen Isley. I am an Athens County resident. I was born and raised in Athens County. I am 61 years of age. I am a lung cancer survivor. I have no history of smoking cigarettes. It is true that no one knows the exact cause of my cancer, but by having part of my lung removed and suffering the effects of 6 months of chemotherapy to stay alive, my motivation became increased to pay attention to environmental risks of exposure to known cancer-causing elements. Known agents like benzene, toluene, radium, and radon, to mention a few, have been documented in Pennsylvania's frac rates. Athens County has been, and continues to be, a dumping ground for other states' landfill waste and now we're fracking waste. Class 2 injection wells are not monitored for detection of this kind of hazardous and harmful waste. We, as Athens County residents, reap absolutely no benefit from allowing this waste to be injected into our ground. There are only risks to our water, air, and soil. There is too much at stake to continue to permit our county, or any other county for that matter, to permit high-pressure injection of these hazardous wastes into our ground. I do not understand why we cannot have the safety precautions that the U.S. EPA was designed to provide. I am not a fool. I know profit and energy demands are a driving force. But who is the fool when too many risks of doing irreparable damage to our water supplies continues without taking all the necessary precautions for our safety? Thank you for your resolution to close the North Ginsburg well within 5 minutes of my current residence. This well is a classic example of unmonitored and unenforced safety measures, spewing unsafe hazardous waste revealed through open pit tests such as xylene, strontium, arsenic, and other radioactive materials into our ground, air, and water. I am concerned about the employees and residents who live in close proximity to this well, who are at more immediate risk of cancer than the other health problems. Long term, I am concerned for all Athens County residents' health risk as increased exposure grows with time. Again, as an Athens County resident, we gain no benefit from allowing this well or any other injection well like it in our county. We only suffer the risks. Furthermore, we must close the loopholes that permits any Class 2 injection wells to receive their waste brine without monitoring, without study of impact on our aquifers, and investigation of seismic activity. For the record, I fully support halting all injection wells in Athens County, believing that our message could have a strong ripple effect in changing these unsafe practices in our country.
Next, Dale Stahl. Bob Stahl? No. Okay. Warren Hayden? No. Patrick McGee? Gets us closer to being on track.
First, I'd like to thank the county commissioners for having this meeting. My name is Pat McGee. I live in town, so I don't live within miles of any injection well. But the one thing I've learned in my practice of law is that the burden of proof is crucial. I think in this case, they've reversed the burden of proof. What they're asking us to do is trust them. And we have to prove there's a problem. I'd say, why don't they prove to us that it's safe? And I'm not convinced yet. So thank you, and I stand in solidarity with the people of Athens County.
My name is Jeff Weiser. I'm the Athens City Council for the Second Ward. I won't take too much time. Most of you know that I and another group of concerned citizens are trying to get a petition on the May ballot for the citizens of Athens City to make the decision on their own whether or not they would like fracking wells and injection wells within the city limits or not. Just that simple. I believe that citizens have a right to express their opinion at the ballot box, to vote on an issue like this rather than have government officials get together and make a decision for them. So I'm hoping this group here will heed our voice, sign a petition, and perhaps it may serve as a catalyst to help the rest of the county to see that there is a clear and present danger out there, and something has to be done, and it has to start at the local level, and we're about as local as we can get. So let's take action.
Randall Gabriel? No. David Gideon?
I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Athens Conservancy, which is a nonprofit conservation land trust. The new Troy Township well could receive over 60 million gallons of fracking waste per year. That is equivalent to a football field covered 140 feet deep. And just think about that for a while, and I'm having trouble imagining where you can fit all that in underground, in void space or whatever. The proposed well site is located less than a mile from an old rail grade that the Conservancy purchased in 2010 for recreational trail development. Several miles of the trail closely parallel Stump Run and cross it 5 times. The Athens Conservancy has been awarded a state grant for a 29-acre parcel next to the rail grade to be a nature preserve. The site of the proposed well drains into Stump Run. Any well failure or spill of fracking waste from delivery trucks could contaminate this stream. The toxins in fracking waste, which often include known carcinogens as well as radioactive materials, would threaten aquatic life in Stump Run, and air pollution from such a spill would pose a health hazard for people using the recreational trail. This new well also presents a health and safety threat to the residents of the town of Torch, located a mile northeast of the well site. Any air pollution resulting from the spill would likely be borne by the prevailing southwest winds into Torch. Injection wells have also caused earthquakes. There is nothing in the application materials suggesting seismic activity that may be caused by injecting such large volumes of liquid. A magnitude 5.7 quake in Oklahoma, which destroyed 14 houses, has been linked to injection of fracking waste, according to a news article published by Columbia University. In the same article, it stated, scientists have linked a rising number of quakes in normally calm parts of Arkansas, Texas, Ohio, and Colorado to below-ground injection. In the last 4 years, the number of quakes in the middle of the United States jumped 11-fold from the 3 decades prior. The fact that adjacent Washington County has experienced recent earthquakes demonstrates that this concern is relevant in the region of this new well. The lack of rigor in the permitting procedure used by ODNR in comparison to that used by U.S. EPA increases our concern about the proposed new well. For example, the U.S. EPA Commercial Class 2 permit, which is the one this well would require, would restrict the fluids injected to a list approved by the U.S. EPA and detailed in the permit. This information, which is not required for an Ohio permit, would be critical in the event of a spill. A U.S. EPA permit, in contrast to ODNR requirements, would also require a number of things, which are geological data for the injection zone, mapping of aquifers close to the injection zone, a detailed description of the construction procedures, orderly analysis of samples taken from the well location, and a testing program designed to obtain data on fluid pressure, estimated fracture pressure, and physical and chemical characteristics of the injection zone. The lack of geological data is a particularly serious flaw in ODNR's permitting requirements. Without these data, ODNR cannot provide assurance that there are no faults, fractures, or fissures that could provide pathways for injected toxic waste to contaminate aquifers that provide drinking water. Furthermore, the huge influx of fracking waste from other states, which may be the main reason this new injection well is being proposed, would not be occurring if Ohio's permitting procedure were as demanding as the EPA's. Because wells in Pennsylvania and West Virginia have to satisfy the EPA regulations while those in Ohio do not, it is easier and cheaper for drillers in those states to truck their waste to Ohio than to deal with them where they are generated. We ask that U.S. EPA level the playing field by requiring that this industry in Ohio play by the same rules as it does elsewhere. To this end, we ask that U.S. EPA do a thorough audit of ODNR's permitting procedures and suspend permitting of new Ohio injection wells until that audit is complete.
Pete's in, Marty's in. Either one. Jane Richter. Shelley Stark.
My name is Shelley Stark. I'm a research analyst and editor, and I've been researching fracking and its waste products for more than 2 years. I grew up in Colorado and had family and friends there. Very few Coloradans had ever heard the word fracking in 2006 when I moved to Ohio. Yet the unconventional technique of gas drilling had been happening for years in western parts of the state. There have reports of drinking water contamination, alarming rates of new cancer and asthma cases, water shortages due to gas companies outbidding local orchards and ranches, destruction of property values and gag orders on settlements with gas companies began trickling into the awareness of the state's residents. Since the flooding that happened in September in the eastern part of Colorado, people in the Front Range, which includes Denver, Boulder, and all areas east of the Rockies, are shocked and furious to now be experiencing the heartbreaking and deadly effects of the gas industry's activities. The flooding caused the immersion and leaking of gas wells, of which there are thousands all over the eastern plains. Those areas are surrounded by neighborhoods, towns, and farms, and their governor, Hickenlooper, previously pro-fracking, has acknowledged and insisted on, acknowledged a state of emergency and insisted on new rules. Ohio is a breadbasket with a rich food-producing climate and abundant water. Why agree to risk the future health of our economy, our people, our livestock, and our water by letting the gas industry dump its radioactive, cancer-causing waste into our Class 2 injection wells, which are rated only for salt water? How much evidence of leaks, earthquakes, lack of inspections by ODNR, lack of penalties delivered by ODNR in the documented infractions and citations that have occurred for years? How much evidence of harm is needed before we say no more? I am attaching 2 reports by industry experts that contain data on the rates of well casing failure. By industry standards, all casings fail with time. What legacy are we leaving our children and grandchildren? Our media is saturated with gas industry propaganda telling us that we can trust the technology, that it is patriotic, or that we can be the good guys by shipping our fuel overseas. You name it, the industry thinks we'll buy it. If they think it will buy it, they'll spout it. The industry is spending millions and millions of dollars to confuse us. It keeps spouting the blatant lie that there has never been a documented case of water contamination. A blatant lie. I could save the gas and oil industry all of that advertising money. If the industry wants to convince us that its practices are safe, all it has to do is show us. All the industry needs to do is request that the gas and oil industry be placed back under the normal regulations from which it was removed, regulations that oversee all other high-impact industries in America. The industry need only ask that the exemptions of regulatory oversight that were given only to this industry be nullified, and that the safety and environmental standards be reinstated. If it's safe and good for America, proudly tell us the chemicals it uses and let its activities be inspected and evaluated. Ohio is at a crucial moment in its history. There is undeniable, documented evidence that the practice of unconventional horizontal fracking is unsafe, cancer-causing and water system destroying. Its waste product is a super hazardous material. Ohio can learn from the evidence of Colorado, Pennsylvania, Texas, and North Dakota, and wisely say no to this technology. Ohio had the personal experience not so long ago of the C8 poisoning. I ask you to remember to educate yourselves and to lead with foresight instead of hindsight. Say no to the K&H injection well permit application. It is the only wise thing to do. Thank you.
Good evening. Good to be here. Thank the commissioners for making this occasion possible. Richard Logan, resident here in Athens County. And just want to say, coming from a nuclear submarine background, surrounded by nuclear power and nuclear weapons in the 60s and on to working with industry, design engineering areas for a decade or so, and a lot of other stuff after that. I really want to just say a few notes here. It seems to me like we've arrived at a place similar to where we were in the 80s with the nuclear arms race. And there was an initiative to stop, halt, it turned into the freeze, the nuclear freeze. Are we not at a time with this kind of extreme energy, being nuclear, fossil fuel, fracking, whatever, that it is a time for calling a halt? So, freezing of fossil fuels and fracking and lethal injection wells. How about this? It feels like we're being sold a bill of goods and not getting the truth. A media blackout on nuclear as well as the fracking in many ways. So, if not that, then what? They call the halt, and then on to what friend Harvey Wasserman is doing out of Bexley, helping the world wake up to a media blackout on the Fukushima disaster. And take a look at that. Harvey Wasserman, and he's well known for solar-topia, a well-read piece that we move away from fossil energy and nuclear and create what we really want together, a new we, a new story, a new earth. Reverend Howard.
Well, I'm Gregory Howard, and I've worked in mechanical construction field, and also hazmat. I was working out in Nebraska when we had solvents from the World War II and the Korean War, and the officers there.
Hard to hear you.
Okay, I'll be better. And it's possible to do until the detergent's given with the solvents. And once the detergent's in the water, it's dispersed throughout the aquifer. It's obvious what the U.S. EPA, with all the different concerns there, and how much better job they would do. But until we get the science on how to handle this, it should be a moratorium on it. Due diligence is not happening by the state. Going back to this 1983, where Ohio took it over, things have changed tremendously back then. The volume of putting down holes. They used to do gravity right out the tanks, not 2,500 pound pressure. Every 1,000 feet of casing is another 500 psi down hole. It adds up really fast. And the API itself, the American Petroleum Institute, is a lot lower standard than mechanical standards. Like they can use new pipe that's never highway tested. And in the mechanical world, that's not possible. The engineering is not right as far as, with my review, I wouldn't even say that it was. That's all I've done.
Jim Walker. That's Charlotte.
Hi, I'll skip over the intro and just
go straight to the observations. I'll also skip my citations and just submit them into the record. My observations are increased seismicity followed the commencement of injection and hydrofracking fluids. The Youngstown study showed that 109 small earthquakes were detected from January 2011 to February 2012 in Youngstown, where there were no known earthquakes in the past. And the first detected earthquake occurred 13 days after commencement of injection. Number two, high pressure and large volume are not required to reduce seismicity. Total injection volume was a very small quantity when it started to trigger an earthquake, and the injection pressure was relatively low, and hence there must have been nearly direct fluid conduits with trending fault very close to the injection wellbore. Number three, underlying faults need to be identified prior to permitting. I won't go into this, it's a little bit technical. Number four, the onset of seismicity activity may occur years after commencement of injection. This was found in an Oklahoma study where the long-term injection fluids were into an initially stable geologic formation, and it took over a decade for the earthquakes to commence. And number five, seismic activity may persist for years after injection ceases. This was also found in an Ashtabula, Ohio study and at RMA, which was a well near Denver, Colorado. More than a year after injection ceased, they had their largest earthquake of 5.2. Number six, seismic events can damage private property and endanger citizens. This study stated a 5.7 quake in Oklahoma damaged 14 homes, destroyed 14 homes, damaged many other buildings, injured 2 people, and buckled pavement. So my recommendation is that maximum measures be taken to protect the lives and property of citizens from the potential increase in seismic activity associated with injection wells. In order to achieve this goal, it is recommended that oversight for Ohio's injection well program should rest with the U.S. EPA rather than with the ODNR. The EPA requires in 40 CFR 146.22a that all new Class II injection wells shall be sited in such a fashion that they inject into a formation which is separated from any drinking water supply by a confining zone that is free of known open faults or fractures within the area of review. These fractures must be determined before permitting to ensure the geologic stability of the area in question before the application is granted. In conclusion, to permit, drill, and inject hydrofracking fluid is a false, negligent, and potentially dangerous method for determining the geologic stability needed for safe hazardous waste disposal. The cost of determining the underlying geologic structure, the monitoring of the seismic activity, and the monitoring of the ground and surface water for contaminants should be borne by the entity hoping to profit from the enterprise.
Hello, my name is Andrea Wright, and I've been busily paring this down, but I did give a copy to the commissioners, and I do want to thank them for their willingness to host this public meeting. I've lived in Athens County for over 35 years. My husband and I chose to live here and raise our children here because of the environment, the community, and I'm really concerned at what the outcome will be. It sounds a little rough because I've been paring it down, but my comments tonight are directed to Ohio's unwillingness to provide local citizens the right to participate in this application process. U.S. EPA is responsible for implementing and overseeing the Safe Water Drinking Act, which includes managing the underground injection control program. In 1983, U.S. EPA gave primacy to Ohio to manage this program. That approval meant that Ohio had to administer an effective program to maintain clean water. I believe that the ODNR application process is ineffective and outdated in part because it does not allow for citizen input in the decision-making process. Okay. Under U.S. EPA regulations, it states that they request public comment and that there will be a scheduling of a public hearing if any member of the public requests such a hearing. That is not the policy in Ohio. ODNR will publish a notice of the application and they say they accept comments. But as you heard tonight, once again, we're being told that these comments are not relevant. Therefore, no public hearing, therefore, end of citizen input. I looked up the definition of relevant, and it's defined as having significant bearing on the matter at hand. Over 100 comments from citizens on all aspects of this application have been submitted. How much more relevant can these concerns be related to this K&J injection well application? ODNR practices of deliberate exclusion of public concern is contrary to U.S. EPA regulations on the application process, which encourages open decision-making where public can provide valuable input. ODNR does not value public input where repeated written comments, telephone calls, and emails regarding information and requesting a public hearing are ignored. In conclusion, I look forward to Region 5 U.S. EPA audit that's to be completed in the spring of 2014. And in conclusion, I strongly urge that the U.S. EPA require that ODNR suspend any new injection well applications until this audit is completed and Ohio is brought under the intent of the UIC program and SWDA. Thank you.
I just want to say, in relation to what Andrea was just saying, well, I want to say two things, but first, and this is a question, but I am wondering if when EPA grants a public hearing, if there isn't also a right to appeal to an administrative hearing review board, and then also a right to go into federal district court when the agency hasn't made responses to the concerns of citizens that are adequate. And that's partly a question because I haven't researched it, but often there is such a right, and I wouldn't be surprised if EPA would extend that were we still under the auspices of the EPA. The other thing I wanted to do was just say that Dr. Deborah Calvin, she's a medical doctor who has spoken here. She has submitted testimony. It's quite lengthy on the health effects of radioactivity, of volatile organic compounds, benzene, toluene. There's another one. I've got my bundle here. I can't reach it. And it's very extensive, very well explained testimony that is going to be in the testimony submitted.
Christine Hughes.
Hello, I first want to read from the testimony that was submitted by Marianne Flournoy, who couldn't be here tonight. Just some highlights. She's writing to protest the granting of the permit to KH number 2, based on a highly deficient application that will not prevent pollution of land, surface water, and drinking water sources as required by Ohio law. My protests, I'm speaking for her, concern the permit application's inability to protect health, safety, and environmental conservation in the county in which I live on a 347-acre farm, which protects the watershed, grows hay for many horse owners, and provides recreation and educational opportunities for university students, church groups, and friends. Excuse me. I request a public hearing in Athens County based on my concerns with the serious deficiencies of this permit application to prevent contamination and pollution of the surface of the land, surface water, and groundwater, as required by Ohio Administrative Code 1501-9304. Because these are issues relevant to public health, safety, and environmental conservation, the law requires a public hearing. And thank you for this public meeting tonight. I just wanted to give a few personal comments as a business owner and let the community know that the small business environment in Ohio is well aware of the dangers of fracking and the fracking waste that we're getting in Athens County. There's a letter circulating to Ohio businesses. I'll just quote from it. That we're writing as business leaders to express strong opposition to shale drilling, waste disposal in our state. Property values and population decrease where industrial activity and waste disposal move in, changing the character and the consumer base of our communities. Communities in Ohio that receive the waste products of this industry have additional health, safety, and economic security concerns. Ohio's primary business is agriculture, and shale drilling is directly impacting businesses that produce food for Ohio markets. Conservation-based generational farms, as well as younger businesses serving rising consumer demand for local food, are both especially vulnerable to damage from this industry. Organic certification is at risk for farms in the path of the drilling industry. Loss of cropland and pasture, increased pollution from the entire shale drilling process, and the damaged reputation of healthy Ohio-grown food threaten to make farming in Ohio a losing profession. Thank you.
Mimi Morrison.
I'm Mimi Morrison. I also am a business owner in Southern Ohio, and I have strong opposition to what is happening to the health and the environment right here in Athens County. An economic impact report is put out by the state every 2 years. The last one, done in 2011, determined that tourism dollars in Ohio brought $40 billion to Ohio. Athens County accounted for $130 million of that. Tourism in Athens County is the second largest industry behind Ohio University. Tourism and Ohio University both entirely depend on the quality of life, the health of the environment. We cannot attract tourism or students or professors if we fail on the health and clean environment. It is urgent that proper oversight of injection wells be put into place. I request that the U.S. EPA take control, and I request that the U.S. EPA suspend all new ODNR injection well permitting until the U.S. EPA's audit of Ohio's program is completed. And I request that they do a complete audit. I am one of many Ohioans who have invested everything and time in creating a tourism business here. I personally have spent 20 years of my life building a business that will be destroyed if the environment is degraded. I operate a outdoor business here in Southern Ohio. It will be destroyed if we lose our environment here. Small business is growing, it has grown, and as individuals and as tourism professionals and Athens County residents, we deserve to have a clean environment. Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight.
My name is Teresa Mills. I am the fracking coordinator for the Buckeye Forest Council, and I am also the Ohio organizer for the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice. First, let me say that it is shameful that ODNR is not holding this hearing. And I want to thank each one of the county commissioners for allowing citizens to be heard. ODNR has robbed your citizens of their fundamental right of due process. I am probably one of the few people in this room tonight that has read almost every Class 2 injection well inspection report for the state of Ohio. That's actually kind of silly, but anyway. I couldn't even begin to tell you the problems that I've seen, not only in Athens County, but across the state of Ohio. But I don't want to dwell on those problems. I want to give you my thoughts regarding the K&H2 well. In reading the public notice for the K&H well, one word stood out to me, and that word was used twice. The word is estimated. The average injection is estimated to be 3,000 barrels per day. The maximum injection pressure is estimated to be 460 pounds per square inch. Will the 3,000 barrels per day stand when the permit is issued? No. Will the 460 psi's pressure stand when the permit is issued? Maybe. But the well owner can ask for increases in the injection pressure, and if they do that, citizens will never know. That's exactly what happened in Youngstown. How can citizens comment on a public notice? Citizens have taken it upon themselves to request copies of the permit application and are basing their comments on said application. Citizens are not able to formulate technical comments that could show justification for the permit to be denied or to effect change in the permit because we have never seen the permit. We are commenting on the agency's guess or estimate. ODNR does not issue Class 2 injection well permits in draft that would allow citizens to make a comment on the permit. Again, citizens are never given the ability to comment on a permit. ODNR does not issue a statement of basis that would give the citizens the information that the agency used to determine how they arrived at their conclusion that this well would not impact drinking water. Injection pressure, and to our scientists in the room, please listen to this carefully, okay? Injection pressure is based on a calculation done by ODNR using the specific gravity of 1.2. This gravity is based on production water from the Clinton formations. I saw you jog-minded too. Citizens never see the specific gravity of the injection fluid that will actually be injected in your community. Yet, it is the pressure that governs compliance with the permit. The volume of waste injected is only limited by the permitted injection pressure and the capacity of the formation to accept the fluids. In reality, they could inject more waste than is reflected in their application. So instead of 3,000 barrels a day, it could be more. And I want to say one thing on the Ginsburg well. It's very telling that the Ginsburg well has been inspected 118 times. Does that show problems? And there was at least 5 years that ODNR didn't inspect it at all. Okay, terms and conditions. I want to hit on this very quickly. I read recently a permit for an injection well that was issued in Washington County, where we've also had earthquakes. And the term and condition was, if an earthquake above a 3.0 occurs in close proximity to the well, they have to do seismic monitoring. Sounds great. Okay, but 3.0, none, listen to this, none of the earthquakes that occurred in Youngstown were above a 3.0 until New Year's Day when the 4.0 hit. So they would, if this term and condition had been used in Youngstown, they would never have had seismic monitoring. Oh, and I'm going to leave with the commissioners. ODNR says there's never been a case of contamination. I have 2 right here that I will leave with the commissioners.
We'll make sure we send those in as a response to whatever we receive. A little technical, making sure recording works here. While we're waiting, John Howell.
My thanks to the commissioners for holding this hearing. I'm a landowner in Athens County and concerned about preservation of air and water. So we have not permitted any kind of fracking or injection wells on our own land. But the problem is, of course, air and water move from one person's land to another person's land. So in order for us to have clean air and water on our land, it requires regulations on my neighbor's land and on my land for the protection of my neighbors as well. What has been clearly documented is that over time, these wells, gas and oil wells, fail. Over time, they fail. So the risk is there. And my question is, why should we accept this risk when the profits go elsewhere?
Sven?
Yes. Sven Litzkohl, I've been an on and off resident of Athens County since 1970. And during a lot of those years, I've also lived in South Florida, and I know something about injection wells from that experience. We're all here because of water, I believe. Almost all of us are here because of water, and that is the critical issue. And Studies of what has happened in the past are really irrelevant. They are comparing apples and cluster bombs, I think is appropriate because of the presumed increase in the quantity of water that would be injected. What we have to all do as citizens is support the scientists, support the geologists. We've heard all the proper information today about absence of knowledge of capacities, the flow, the area in which the injection is to be made, and so on. There are fractures and fissures in the geology, and they would not be exploring this if there were not fractures and fissures. And all of this water that goes down is not going to be kept in one little chamber. It is going to migrate. Groundwater migrates. It moves from one place to another, and it can move up fissures as well as across and down fissures. So really my message is concentrate on the water, concentrate on supporting the geologists, put pressure on the geologists that are in the employ of the state because they are subject to all kinds of political pressure that puts a cap on what they have to say. So the strongest thing that you can do is to strengthen the backbone of the people that will give the technical information. Down in South Florida, we go into alarm whenever we hear the term injection well. We have injection wells used for many years down there, and they injected wastewater. And that wastewater was loaded with nutrients. And this continued year after year. The population grew, of course, in South Florida dramatically, and the amount of water injected grew, and eventually some of that water somehow found its way out into the marine waters surrounding Florida. And as a consequence, the precious coral reefs are damaged. The water near where I was living, which was gin clear year after year, wonderful place to be, all of a sudden that water started turning green, brown, yellow, and it was most distasteful. So water does migrate no matter what they say, and they can't say with certainty unless they have appropriate technical information. Support that information. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the Board of Athens County Commissioners for their bold response to the citizen outcry of radioactive and toxic waste being brought into this county, and their responses by holding this public meeting tonight. This is government at its best, so thank you, gentlemen. And the underground injection well control program of the state of Ohio is government at its absolute worst. First, let me say I don't have any really written comments. Well, no, I have lots of written comments. It's just that they've gone over a long period of time. So let me start by saying the K&H permit application for the second well, as well as the first well out in Troy Township, is as much of a sham as the first application, which only got 1 day of notification in the paper and no public comments because nobody knew about it. The second application is based on the first application. The daggone thing was 12 pages long and had absolutely no information in it that was relevant or valuable to a citizen to analyze it and comment on it, and Teresa just spoke about that. The reason we are asking the US EPA to do an audit is because they are mandated to do that audit. They are mandated by Congress since 1983 when the state of Ohio got its program to control the underground injection well control program. Congress intended for the U.S. EPA to be the watchdog over every state that has primacy in its injection well control programs. Mandated. Not come in and just look at a few notebooks and a few pieces of paper and talk to a few inspectors and the head of ODNR, but scrutinize it. Meticulous scrutiny is needed on this injection well program today. It is not 1983. We are not injecting just salt water brine into these injection wells. We are injecting toxic, hazardous waste that has been known to migrate out of hazardous wells, class 1 wells, and it's going to migrate out of class 2 wells. So when you hear this, the information, our request for the U.S. EPA to do this audit, it is because they're mandated to do it. So we must, as citizens, keep asking them to do their job, because we know that the state of Ohio is not doing their job. And as we speak, there are thousands of gallons of this waste going to the injection well already permitted, the K&H number 1 well in Troy Township. In 2010, Ohio received and injected 8,500,000 gallons of toxic waste. That's 357 million gallons of waste. The K&H wells 1 and 2 are going to be permitted. You heard Teresa say estimates are on that permit application. Those estimates are actually allowable amounts of up to 5,000 gallons of waste a day. And that could end up to be 60 to 80 million of gallons of waste a year. That's 1/6 of what the state of Ohio injected across the state of Ohio in 2010. 1 well, 2 wells in Troy Township in Athens County will be injecting that waste. The state of Ohio intends to permit every single application for an injection well that comes its way. The Director Zerrier and Chief Simmers have used their discretionary powers to eliminate what we're doing here tonight at the state level. They have done it in the past, and they intend to continue to do that. The oil and gas industry, decades ago, put a game plan in place. They are following that game plan. They've hired their lobbyists. They are spending millions of dollars on these ridiculous commercials on television showing happy little ranchers with their happy little wells in the background that are taking their waste to the state of Ohio because we want it. We don't want it. Our leaders want it. So what we are armed with is far more important than what the industry has. We are armed with knowledge, and knowledge is truth. We have the social media that is carrying our messages far and wide across the state and across this country. And I encourage all of you, the critical mass here now is to use those sources that we have available to us, truth and knowledge, and get our legislators. They are the key element in this at this point. Our legislators must know that the injection well control program in the state of Ohio is a sham, and they are the only ones who can change it. And I really thank Gene Wilson for being here tonight from Sharon Brown's office. And I actually have way too much information that I can explode with at any point. But please follow information on the ACFAN website. There's more information than you would ever want to know in your lifetime about what's going on in our counties and in the state of Ohio. Thank you very much.
Susan?
I'm nowhere near as prepared as many of our speakers, and I want to thank everyone who spoke. But I'm just, as another concerned citizen, also as a physician who knows how difficult it is
to be able to tease out illness related to environmental contamination. It's virtually impossible. We don't want to have to deal with problems after the fact. We want to prevent problems. People have spoken very eloquently about the need for ODNR's permitting process to be more complete, their inspections to be real, and their citations and consequences of failures to actually have a bite so that the companies theoretically will want to operate their wells. But in addition to the question of seismic monitoring, I don't know if the question of old mines in the area was addressed. It seems, since Southeast Ohio is replete with acid mine drainage, which again shows the mobility of water and contaminants, that may be yet another complicating factor that needs to be looked at very closely in permitting as well. And if ODNR is able to put special conditions on this permitting, I would ask that they require the same type of monitoring that the federal EPA would require, quarterly monitoring for VOCs, radioactivity, and that the companies be required to provide full disclosure of all the chemicals and ingredients in the brine that they're injecting, that they have a written plan for mitigation if any accident occurs, and a written plan for compensation for both landowners, the county for road damage or whatever, and this would include written plan for compensation for any damage related to earthquakes. There is, of course, no going back, and there's no reasonable compensation that can be done when groundwater is contaminated. So even if all those things occurred, I would still call for the EPA to deny this application because, as so many people have said, the county relies on farming and tourism. It's our backbone. When the EPA director said that they permit this according to science and law, people have amply demonstrated already that they did not adequately address the science. Regards to the law, the law is not the be-all and end-all. There can be ethics and morality above the law, and we ask that ODNR do the responsible thing and listen to the citizens, not permit this well. And of course, we already have example in Athens County that when people don't get listened to and the agencies and offices that are charged with protecting our health, welfare, and environment don't do their jobs, if the people aren't listened to, then we have to become more aggressive, and civil disobedience is the next step.
One housekeeping note, we have 19 potential speakers left. We've got about 37 minutes. When you hear the beeps, please wrap up your comments so we can keep trying to get everybody in before the night's over. Next, Heather Cantino.
I'll be fast. Whether or not some of the toxic material injected as brine into Class 2 wells has been exempted from regulation as hazardous waste, does not mean it is not highly toxic and must therefore be handled in such a way so as not to endanger drinking water per Ohio and federal law. Whatever ODNR says, it must protect our drinking water. It is not protecting our drinking water, and it cannot show us that its program can in any way protect our drinking water. The ACFAM website on the injection well page has a long piece on the differences between US EPA regulation and permitting requirements and ODNR, including things like under US EPA, US EPA would have to approve of any change in the contents of the well. It would have to know exactly what was going into the well, and the PSI, the pounds per square inch, would be determined by the highest specific gravity of any of contents approved. It would have to approve of any change, and of course this is important in terms of seismicity. According to US EPA documents, we should all recognize that some Class 2 fluids are 10 times nastier than some Class 1 injectates. There are many solvents, for example, that would be classified as hazardous in the wells injecting them as Class 1 if they were not used in conjunction with oil and gas production. On any given day, the injectate of a Class 2 well has the potential to contain hazardous concentrations of solvents, acids, and other listed and characteristic RCRA or hazardous wastes. Exemptions of gas and oil injectate from hazardous waste regulation does not remove responsibility from Ohio and US EPA for preventing pollution and contamination under Ohio Revised Code 1501 and US 40 CFR 144.12. Primacy is based on the ability of the state to fulfill this requirement. It is US EPA's legal obligation to revoke that primacy now, and we must call on US EPA loud and clear to stop all permitting until they do a full audit and revoke primacy. So people could write to US EPA, publicize as much as you can that the situation is dire and US EPA has a legal obligation to step in. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Bernhard Debatin. I am a professor of journalism. I'm also a concerned citizen. I've been living in Athens for about 13 or 14 years now. I'm a father of 2 children. I'm a cancer survivor. I've been involved in environmental issues for quite some time. I am very concerned about the situation that we have here with the injection wells. I would very much hope that EPA and not ODNR is doing the oversight of it, because it seems to me that ODNR sees its job mostly in putting lipstick on a pig, which means they have to solve a situation that is pretty dire, and that is that the oil and gas industry has been fracking the hell out of this country, and they're producing unbelievable amounts of water, or rather unbelievable amounts of hazardous waste that needs to be put somewhere, and we happen to be the toilet of the planet. And that is not a good thing. I do want to mention also that we have a situation where only the oil and gas industry enjoys these privileges. The type of hazardous waste that is being put into these injection wells would not be allowed in that type of injection wells if it came from any other industry. This is the only industry that allows that. I also want to mention briefly that we are being presented with a rhetoric that is full of fallacies. The rhetoric, for example, to tell us that we have 30 or 40 or 50 years of injection wells is plain wrong, because the volume and the quality of the hazardous waste is completely different today. Just as it is wrong to say fracking has been done for the past 60 years, that is the same type of lie, the same type of bad rhetoric, and I think we should be very, very diligent in making sure that people understand that these are lies and this is not the truth. We are not being told the truth by this industry, and we need to make sure that this industry is stopped. Thank you.
I'll shorten my comments because some of them people have already covered in terms of the amount
of waste that's going into the K&H well. But one thing I did look into and found pretty interesting was the radioactive materials that are in that wastewater. When you go down into Marcellus Shale, it comes up with radium-226. It's deep in the earth, and that's in the water that's injected into the injection wells. How many of you in here have Tucker's Plains water? The Tucker's Plains water well is downriver from where these injection wells are going to be. And the amount of waste that's being injected into these wells is over 8 million gallons a year. Tucker's Plains water system, I called NAS today, only uses 4 million gallons a year. So there's been twice as much injected into this well as 14,000 residents and users of Tucker Plains water use in a year. So I ask you, how long is it going to take for that to impact their well fields? Those well fields have been impacted by CA in the past. We know it happens. There is no way that a water district, the Tucker Plains Water District, can test for radioactivity. They don't have the tools, they don't have the equipment to do that. It's not required that the ODNR doesn't require that there is testing for that. So how are we to know? The only way we're going to know is when the toxics build up and then it's discovered. So for these reasons, I really urge the U.S. EPA to suspend ODNR injection well permitting until the audit of the Ohio program has been completed.
Hi, my name is Krista Cummings, and we moved a ton as a kid, but the biggest chunk of years that I spent as a girl were at a farm outside of New Marshfield. I love this county. I grew up playing outside as part of a gardening, hunting, fishing families. I grew up with stories about my dad drinking directly from streams and my mother seeing birds perched as far as she could see on telephone lines. And that is what I want for our children. The frac waste going into injection wells directly threatens my vision. I grew up working poor, I'm still working poor, and I know that humans can survive without money. We can survive without fossil fuels. But we cannot survive without drinkable water and breathable air and farmable soil. Once fracking waste pollutes these, we never get them back. The fracking waste being injected into the Class 2 injection wells contains hazardous waste according to ODNR's own samples, even though these wells are not built to take hazardous waste. Granting the fracking waste a government exemption does not take away its toxicity. I do not want any injection wells in Athens County, let alone another K&H.
Hi, I'm Al Vicious. First, a personal note, sadly, I believe that most of the public comments will be deemed irrelevant or not substantive by the ODNR unless they prove to be in violation of existing state law. And that's where the problem is. Your comments clearly show the flaws in the regulations, and to change this, the state level regulations must change. And that's where our efforts are needed. Talking to the ODNR doesn't do it. Having said that, I wanted to talk about the advisory committee that was formed last year by the Athens County Commissioners. I was a member of that committee, and we issued our final report at the end of last year, and I'd like to read you the assessment, our final assessment from that report. Currently, the primary impact in Athens County from deep shale drilling in Ohio is the significant increase in out-of-state wastewater transported and injected into local Class II disposal wells. This brings issues of water contamination and road degradation and has no local economic benefit except to the injection well owner. This is the main foreseeable impact of deep shale drilling on our county for the near future. So in the likelihood of that event, we make the following recommendations. We recommended that Athens County or the ODNR initiate baseline water testing near injection wells and perform regular periodic testing around those wells. We suggest that training be provided for Athens County, Athens City Fire Departments, and volunteer township fire departments and emergency responders on how to handle frac waste accidents or illegal dumping. I mean, they don't know if they should pour water on it, sand, foam, where a hazmat sewer was. There's liability to the emergency responders here. We also recommended the modification of the road use maintenance agreement to include injection well operators, and then to help mitigate the influx of out-of-state injection waste, we recommended the development of a state-level bill for tax testing and increased taxing of out-of-state waste. We also suggest that site disposal wells so as to avoid injection into active faults, to limit injection rates so as to avoid causing substantial increases in core pressure at depth, and to install seismic monitoring networks. Personally, I'd like to see the ODNR, as experts in this field, research and lobby the state for contemporary best management practices in the oversight of injection wells, rather than simply reciting regulatory rhetoric. The status quo ain't good enough, and you should know that.
Madeline Fitch.
Hi, my name is Madeline Fitch, and I'm a resident of Athens County, and in a few weeks I'm going to be raising my family in Athens County. We rely on spring water to drink, and we don't own our mineral rights. This is a high-stakes issue for me, as it is for everyone in this room. I was really glad to hear that Jim Zeringer is going to be relying on science to make his decision, because I think we've seen tonight the science is clearly saying that injection wells are very dangerous. There are no regulations that are strong enough to ensure the safety of Class II injection wells. Regulations have no effect on the law of physics, chemistry, and geology or human error. Using industry's own records and statistics, it has been shown by Dr. Anthony Graffi at Cornell University that in the first year, 1 in every 20 new injection wells drilled experience a failure, resulting in human or environmental consequences. This 5% first-year failure rate holds true no matter where or when wells are drilled or what regulations or fines are in effect. So you think that's bad? Well, failure rates on wells increase with each passing year until after just a few years, these wells have a 50% failure rate. To put it in perspective, the risk levels for the failure of airplanes or bridges is 1 in 10 million. For a new injection well, it is 1 in 20 in its first year, and it gets worse with time. So, at the beginning I said, I mentioned Jim Zeringer's decision, but I'd actually like to emphasize that it's our decision. We don't need to be groveling with government regulators. We need to be making demands. This is our decision to make. This is our community. I want to send a strong and clear message. Say no to the new K&H well permit application. We must shut down this industry in Athens County. No new permits, no new wells. Thank you.
My name's got an awful spelling noise. It's like Tuesday, but it's Tuesday. I'm Tuesday Blue. I came here today to talk to the people who have the will and the power to stop the fracking industry and the injection well industry around here. Not the ODNR, not the KNH, not the EPA. I came here to talk to you all. I recently saw some of Barack Obama's second inaugural speech, and he talked about, proudly said that the U.S. funded the research that gave birth to horizontal fracking. Knowing this, does it make you think that the government is going to stop fracking? When they paid for it, they bought it, they paid for it, they did the research, they know what it is. All across the world, people are fighting fracking. All up and down the Appalachian Mountains, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, people are fighting fracking everywhere. And we're fighting it here, and we need to keep upping the ante and pushing the envelope. If fracking is going to end, it's going to be because we ended fracking. It's not going to be because they found out that it wasn't safe. They know it's not safe. Fracking is a money issue, okay? And we don't have the money in this room. None of us has the money in this room to end fracking by buying whatever the oil and gas industry buys to keep fracking going. But we have people power, okay? We have passion. What I'm saying is, when this permit goes through, let's all go out there and stop them from building an injection well. And if we can't stop them from building it, let's stop them from receiving waste. Let's do it every day. Let's do it every week. Let's do it every month, or whenever we can. Because if we lose faith, there's no going back. When the water makes us sick, we can't live here.
My name is Miles Welch. I'm a local husband, father, and pastor, all of which give me concerns for not just myself, but everybody in my community. And commissioners, first of all, I want to thank you individually, each of you, for supporting this, and as one team of supporting officials for holding this public meeting, and giving us the opportunity to voice our important concerns regarding the invasion of yet another toxic waste injection well. We all realize that you are going above and beyond your call of duty as commissioners in granting us this public meeting. To stand here before you tonight is not a right that any of us have, but rather a privilege that all of us are being granted. I just want to thank you for being such respectable commissioners in your role. And I wish the governor and the ODNR would be just as honorable as you guys are being. So thanks, guys. About 3 weeks ago, here in Athens, I was talking to a young man. His name was Joe. He used to work for a company that was hired to clean up dangerous environmental hazards, such as chemical spills. He was part of the cleanup crew that worked at the illegal dumping site that was being allowed by Ben Lupo a few months ago along a tributary that leads into the Mahoning River, into which over 240,000 gallons, I believe that's the correct number, of frack waste is known to have been dumped under the leadership of Mr. Lupo. I asked this young man about the cleanup operation, and he told me a few things that are very pertinent to our community's concerns, which are being addressed here tonight. He would have given me more information had he not been forced to sign a gag order preventing him from sharing more with me. The man said that the company he was working for began the operation by testing for over 200 different chemicals. He didn't say what those chemicals were. After testing was completed and the results were in, the cleanup began. He told me a lot about the process, but one thing that stood out in my mind. He said that almost all of what had been cleaned up from the site had to be hauled away to a hazardous waste disposal facility up in Michigan in order for them to be in compliance with the law. He said that this made the cleanup very expensive, but it was hazardous waste according to their test results, so that's where it had to go. Why does this matter in relationship to this KNH2 injection well? It matters because the waste that tested hazardous at this spill site was dumped there by many fracking-related companies who otherwise would have been dumping their waste in the injection wells that Ben Lupo owns, had those wells not been shut down due to causing earthquakes here in Ohio. These wastes, many of which had come from out-of-state frac sites, are the exact same chemicals that are being dumped in the ground in the injection wells currently invading our county and state, and will be dumped without care, consideration, or oversight from ODNR officials into the KNH2 well, which is not equipped to receive hazardous waste, even if it is in proper working condition, if it's permitted. U.S. EPA, as a citizen of the United States, I ask you to release me and my fellow Ohioans from the oppression of Governor Kasich and the ODNR by taking away their primacy and putting an end to this irresponsible act of dumping hazardous chemicals into my neighbor's ground. Governor Kasich, I hope you're watching this video. I usually wear this shirt so I see it when I walk by the mirror, but I'm wearing it for you tonight.
Thanks, Cal. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for having us here, and thank you for the concern that you're showing by having this meeting. ODNR, it should have been you. Guys, I'm so sorry that we're here. I'm so sorry that we are fighting such an evil, horrible, monstrous thing that threatens our very lives and everything that we need to be able to sustain them, and that our children are at risk, and our grandchildren don't even see this earth, because it's horrifying. And I can't even believe that, I mean, it feels like we're walking around in a nightmare so often because of the things that we're up against. And anyways, I also want to say thank you for being here, because I really love you guys. And the reason that I'm here is because I absolutely love this community so much. I used to hitchhike the country before I had kids. Well, a little bit after I had kids too, but don't tell anybody. Anyways, just a little bit. But anyways, Smiles and I used to hitchhike the country, and we fell in love with Athens over 16 years ago, and wanted to live here for 12 years before we were able to. And this community means so much to us. The people here mean so much to us, and this is one of the reasons why. Because all of us are sitting here because we care about one another, and we love each other. And the reason that we have such a big local foods movement is because we love our neighbors, and we want to support our neighbors. And that's what this is about. It's about us supporting each other and defending what is valuable to each of us. And that is one another and life. You know, so anyways, I just want to ask that the ODNR would please be wise. I mean, this is so foolish and so ridiculous, and I can't even believe that you're even considering permitting another well when it's like the most ludicrous thing I can even imagine doing is to willingly accept poison being dumped into our soil, being put into these injection wells that are known to fail and known to put the water, not water, they're stealing water, millions of gallons of water, precious, life-giving water out of our environments, poisoning them, turning them into hazardous waste, blasting them into the ground so that we can get, what, fossil fuels? We don't need fossil fuels to live. We need water, we need soil, we need air. We need to be able to live. And we can't do it if you guys keep poisoning us. And to the EPA, please take away the primacy. Please take away Ohio's primacy. This is so ridiculous that the ODNR is being willing to oversee these things when it's so obvious that they are not doing their job. Because first of all, we're having this meeting thanks to our county commissioners instead of thanks to the ODNR. And this is the second time they've denied us our legal right to a public hearing. And then on top of that, why in the world are they bringing all of this out-of-state waste into Ohio if the Ohio Department of Natural Resources is doing its job? It's not doing its job. And I know I don't have to preach to you guys, that's why I keep looking at this camera, because I hope you guys are listening. Do your job, and U.S. EPA, take their job away from them, because they're getting paid to protect the environment, and they are not doing that at all. And we need protected. Please, and thank you guys. And I want to encourage you guys, keep standing up and keep fighting the good fight. Because we're being oppressed, and we're being afflicted, and we need one another so bad right now, probably more than ever before, and I'm so grateful for you guys in this room. Hallelujah for you guys. Thank you. I love you.
Please, the event. Anna?
Two facts that we know about fracking and its wastewater is that it's hazardous and it can make only a few people spend money. Speaking of money, alternative energy, they say, may be costly initially, yet compared to long-term mitigation and cleanup and loss of property and market values, alternative energy is reasonable and cheap. Some say alternative energy is complicated to set up and maintain. I ask, how complicated is habitat devastation? Morally, it's wrong to look out for profit to the detriment of those around you. Scientists and Native Americans would call this mental illness. It is sociopathic. The only good thing I can think of as a result of this is community's unity.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your gracious willingness to receive public comments about the pending KNH2 injection well permit application and the permitting process as it affects this county and this community. In 1994, President Clinton issued Executive Order 12898 to ensure that all communities and persons across the United States live in a safe and healthful environment. Specifically, the order addresses the civil rights of minority and low-income communities. Actions are mandated to prevent low-income communities from being subjected to disproportionately high and adverse environmental effects. Attached to my comments is a 2013 map published by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources showing the location of all Class 2 brine injection wells in the state of Ohio. Also attached to this data is data from the Census Bureau with the most recent poverty estimates by county in Ohio. The attached information demonstrates that injection wells in Ohio are disproportionately located in Ohio's Appalachian and poorest counties. This is one result of the Ohio's permitting process. Ohio's low-income residents should not have their health put at risk in this manner. The U.S. EPA is urged to do a complete audit of Ohio's injection well permitting process and to examine environmental justice concerns consistent with Executive Order 12898. ODNR's program is out of date and does not adequately protect the public health and safety. The KNH2 application proposes to expect 60 million gallons of waste per year. To date, ODNR has not determined that environmental justice concerns are, quote, relevant so as to necessitate a public hearing on the KNH2 application. Rather, ODNR permits pressurized injection of toxic waste into the ground where it accumulates near our community's water supplies, and this occurs mainly in the counties that are the poorest part of the state. Thank you for an opportunity to share this information and concerns.
Hello everyone. I started my research on injection wells about 2 years ago. I was concerned with the Ginsburg injection well. I was nauseous after half an hour of being at the well. What concerned me was that the Ginsburg injection well was an open toxic pit, and so those toxic fumes were going into our atmosphere. I started doing facility report research, and I found violations on all 5 of our injection wells, which is why I believe that the 6th injection well permit should be denied. What really caught my attention, though, when I was doing these facility reports was this term that the injection well went on vacuum. Vacuum to me meant that something was being sucked up because I'm a vacuum, but that's not the case. The case is that there's a vacuum in the ground. And so the ground is actually sucking this injection waste faster than anticipated, and they don't actually have to put any energy into getting the waste into the ground. So that got me thinking about us being a coal mining county. And so what I found out was we have a lot of vacuum underneath our ground. In Athens County, more than 2.5 million tons of coal were taken out in 1900, more than 5.9 in 1910, more than 6.3 million in tons of coal in 1917, and more than 6.8 million tons in 1920. 40% of the coal production in Ohio throughout the 1900s, the 20th century, was produced right here in Athens Town. So we have a lot of room for this injection waste, well, this toxic radioactive waste to go in our county, which should scare everybody. In fact, there are 1,155 underground mines back in just 1898 operating in Ohio, according to the Division of Geological Survey. So this isn't just an Athens County problem, it's a statewide problem. This got me to look up how Senate Bill 178, which hopefully will start protecting us, because ODNR is not. And hopefully US EPA will take away the primacy and take over, but until then, this is what we have. And under Senate Bill 178, there are two ways to stop injection wells. One is if granted this has to be approved, but one is that if people applying for the permit have been found liable for damaging streets, roads, highways, bridges, culverts, or drainways, then the permit can be denied. So we can do that. We can prove that. The other one is that if there are, if it's a coal-bearing township, then the injection well can be denied. And so I would really like for Ohio to adopt these rules so that coal-bearing townships and counties will have the injection wells denied, because our ground has already been compromised, and so any waste being injected into the ground is a very high risk for our health and our safety. Thank you.
Zach? Oh, Zach. Okay. Moss Woods. Layla. Okay. Ashley Eastman.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Eastman. Katie O'Neill just touched on a couple of points, including how our underneath space has been void of coal for a while now. And it seems as though the industry talks about the space under us as being a void, and I would just like to say that I don't believe in voids. I believe that all of our space is valuable from the top of our atmosphere to the core of this earth. And we're all aware that what goes up eventually comes back down. And I'm also pretty sure that what goes down eventually comes back up. Thank you.
Sheila Chapman. One more after this. I hope the mayor will let us stay a couple minutes past time.
Thank you all for coming to St. Church. home. I didn't prepare anything. Our neighbors informed us of happiness, and thank you all for coming. And I want to say, Ohio, we're not a bunch of worthless nuts, okay? Pennsylvania and other states are sending their wastewater here. Why don't they take it? Okay? And, you know, I have not studied. There's been a lot of great information here that people have studied, and thank you for checking that out. I've not done all that, but I love the earth. I love the planet. I know we do. And we're not going to be able to go to Mars. They're trying to say that we can go to other planets to live. This is our home. If we don't take care of our planet now, we may not be getting money from all this. Somebody's getting money from all of this. You know, they're getting money. We're not. But our home is being destroyed. This planet, from all we've been doing for generations, is destroying it. You're seeing more sinkholes, more earthquakes. You know, and they're saying all this stuff. They've been telling us for years. And now it's coming. You are seeing more and more in the news, things that are happening. We need to do safer things. We can live safer. We don't need all this other stuff. But someone's getting rich from it. We're not worthless nuts. I just want to say that. Ohio does not need someone else's wastewater to destroy our planet, our home, or the animals. And again, thank you all again for coming. Safe trip home. Thank you all.
I'd like to thank the commissioners for holding this hearing. I'd like to remind people that this is the only county that is doing this kind of action, that is actually taking a firm stand and holding a hearing against the wishes of ODNR. So I really appreciate the strength, courage, and integrity. And I think we should all celebrate that. I feel a little bit like space because I look out at all these faces and I love them too. And I think that we're really lucky to have this wonderful community. And we're very connected, and we're really lucky in this time and space to have this. I'd also like to remind people that this is a county and a region in the United States that historically has been extracted, right? We've been extracted from coal, oil, gas, timber, and it's left a legacy in this region. So Athens County is rated as distressed by the Appalachian Regional Commission. Distress means it's one of the worst, that's in quotes, or lowest 10% economically on a national level. So the acceptance of this waste into our county threatens the health and safety of our citizens. It threatens our nationally prominent agricultural system, and it also threatens our economic livelihood. So we have a lot on the edge here with regard to what's happening. Historically, we've accepted it, and it's 2013. We have lots of resources in our hands. We cannot accept this any longer. According to Frac Tracker, between 2010 and 2013, in the second quarter, the Class 2 injection wells received 35 million barrels of waste. 46% of that was the in sector, which I'm assuming means in the state, and then 53% came from out of state. I just would like to highlight the fact that this material is not in any way tested for content. Therefore, we have no way of knowing what exactly the chemicals are that are injected into these wells, and there's no enforcement as to how it's impacted the area around those wells. So injection of this waste is a process that will leave a legacy for future generations. So just think of that. There's a well out in Carbondale that was closed, not a well, a coal mine that ran from Carbondale all the way to Nelsonville, and it was closed in 1923. It has been emitting
acid mine drainage since 1923, and the federal government as well as community groups have been paying to remediate that well since I think 2004. So that just means that for the little bit of money that was received in that time period, we're still dealing with the legacy. And that's what will happen with these wells. I'd just like to ask people to have courage on this, because I have been in the legislature, I have seen what's going on in our government, and it's really a very corrupt and dangerous situation. And we really need to stand up. So if you have an opportunity to go to these committee meetings, write letters, we really cannot sit back. I've been working on activating people and educating for some years, and it's a lot of work. And we have to thank the many people that have been courageously doing this, but it's really important we cannot sit back. Thank you.
Okay, we also have comments from Kevin Judy Smucker, Bob Sheep, Peggy Gish, Elaine Bear, and Becca and Michael Lockman. We do not have time to read them. We will keep them as part of our official record. I want to thank the mayor for allowing us to use the space and for letting us stay over just a few minutes. I want to thank the government and all of you for coming out tonight. Thank you for coming and participating and sharing your comments. We will share them with the state legislators and the federal legislators and continue to work on this